Hello all, and thank you for dialing in today. I'm Brett Shield, Head of Sales for Grow, and I'm joined with Michael Trin, who is one of our BDMs. We're quite excited to be able to share some new features that are available via our Grow Broker portal today, which officially sort of launched at the start of this month. So we'll take you through those new features and specifically honing in on the auto doc gen function. Which is really designed to enable you, our brokers, to have greater control over the deal flow process, eliminate the historical backlog that you may have experienced between credit approval and issuing docs to customers, and ultimately speed up the entire settlement process for your clients. This coincides with the addition of 7 new staff members who recently joined the business in our client services and settlements function, with the sole goal of making the entire deal journey process for yourselves and your customers smoother and then quicker than what you may have historically experienced. This is the first stage launch of these features, and they'll quickly be followed up by a second release coming in a couple of weeks, which will give a lot greater functionality to our broker network and allow them to dial up and dial down brokerages, make amendments to loan terms, and also equipment and invoice costs and the like. So we're quite excited to launch stage 1. I'm certainly looking forward to launching stage 2. And since launch on the 3rd of this month, we've had some amazing feedback from our broker network who have proactively started using it ahead of the training that we're rolling out today, which has been great. But more importantly, they've also provided us some pretty valuable feedback on enhancements and inclusions that they'd like to see moving forward. So following the demonstration, and once you start using the system and get a bit more comfortable with this, I encourage you to either reach out directly to myself, your BDM or AM, and please share the feedback. Please share opportunities where you think that we can improve and add things to the portal to make the experience a lot better. And we'll look to include those in future releases. Before I hand over to Michael to run through the demonstration, please place any questions that you may have in the comments box, and we'll look to answer those at the end of the presentation, time permitting. Over to you.
Great, thanks, Brett. So a lot of you would be aware of how to submit an application in our portal. So this picks up from when a deal is being approved. So in the application listing, you'll see the status and the stage of the deals. And so we've got some queued up where the deal has been approved and either remaining approved or at documentation stage. And so for the deals that have been recently approved, all of the information you would have entered in. If you go into the documentations tab, this is where all of the documentations or supporting attachments need to be added in, and also along with any non-standard conditions. So non-standard conditions are things like rates notices or say a loan statement, and then the standard type of application documentation that's required would be for, say, like a private sale, would be things like current registration certificates, roadworthy if required, or asset inspection, and then the invoice from the seller as well. So with the attachments, you can either drag and drop them into each category, or by clicking on the 3 buttons and attaching it from there. You'll see that as the attachments get added on there, you'll see a little page that kind of shows how many attachments are under each one. And so with all of the pending is what we'll require to either get to documentation stage or eventually what we'll need for settlement. So once everything has been attached through either dragging and dropping or clicking on 3 buttons, you would go up to submit for review, and then our client services team will go through each attachment. And as each attachment is reviewed, it will change from in progress to accepted or rejected from there. And so if it's accepted, great. If it's rejected, there should be some notes at the bottom of the screen as to why. and it might be we've got the front of the driver's license rather than both the front and back, that type of thing. And so you could also click on more to download everything and go from there. And so you get the approval, attach everything that's required, any non-standard conditions or any private sale attachments as well. Submit for review. The team will review it, and you'll get an email to tell you which documents have been accepted and which ones are outstanding. And if there are any outstanding, there'll be notes at the bottom of the email. And then once everything has been accepted, a second email will come out through the system to say the documents are ready to be generated, and you can click on that email to go straight into the application to generate documents. And so what that might look like is once you jump into the deal through either the portal or the email, going directly into a deal that's ready for documentation, it is showing up as approved and documentation stage as well. So let's jump in, and the documents should be all accepted, and signed contract will always be pending until you send out the documents through the portal and they've been signed. They automatically get attached onto here. But at this stage, you would potentially add the invoice in to generate the documents. So generate documents, jump into the contract tab, and you'll notice that there's an asset field here. There's no assets populated at the moment, and so we just need to quickly add one in. So click on add asset. This is for a non-private seller, and you would key in the ABN here, and if the seller or the supplier is currently accredited with us, the name will pop up, but otherwise there will be a field there that will ask to click on add supplier, and really that is ABN, address and phone number, and then that doubles up as an accreditation request as well. So we'll use an ABN for a supplier that's accredited with us. The ABN comes up with a name, and so from here you would key in the invoice number, you would attach the copy of the invoice, and so you could do this here rather than in the documentation field, because it'll automatically go into there as well. And so it uses the information or the asset type that was entered and approved. Just double check that and make sure it matches the invoice. And so you'd make it match the invoice, add a serial number if there is one, and if not, you would potentially put in the invoice number. And then from here, just double check on the invoice price and if there's any deposit showing on the invoice, and then save asset. And so you would add an asset in for each invoice, or if there's multiple VIN assets, that's where you would add multiple assets to there by adding as many assets as invoices or VIN numbers that you have. So just having a quick look at the question. Okay, yeah, so documents, in the documents, we've got a question about whether or not they need to be uploaded one at a time or have custom labels. From there, you jump in and you could attach, and when you attach it, there's different labels available, and you'd pick the most appropriate one, and then you would then attach the documents one at a time from there. If there isn't a label that is relevant, potentially just pick the closest one to it, and then when the documents get reviewed, the labels might get updated or corrected from there. But we'll have a look at each document that does come through. So just continuing with the document generation. We've added in the asset details, so the supply and the asset details. So now the next thing to double check is with the KYC AML. That really is just to show all of the signatories, and also the guarantors. And so any company that's got a guarantor, the signatory would be a guarantor / signer. And just double check that we've got the correct email and mobile number. In this case, it's a dummy information, but we'll confirm that it's right. And then from now, we can generate the document by clicking on the generate contract. Just double check all the figures here. And if everything's right, what we do is go to next and double check that all of the information is right. If there's multiple signatories or guarantors on the deal, just tick on the primary signer, and that could be anyone there. And the primary signer is generally the one that would also complete the direct debit form as well, with the other non-primary signers just needing to sign where they're required. And so then in the add recipients, it automatically goes to all of the signatories, guarantors in the deal. This is to add potentially any of your support teams or anyone else that you would like to have a copy of the contract. They would get an email to say that through DocuSign that the contracts have gone out, and also when they've come back and they've been signed, and they can be downloaded from there. Got a question on solar systems with multiple serial numbers, and it could be anything that has got a lot of serial numbers. You would put in serial numbers as TBA or the invoice number, and then we would take the invoice number and any serial numbers separately to form part of the agreement, so it doesn't actually need to be on the loan documents. Okay, and so now that we've added everyone that we want a copy of the contract other than the clients, because that's automatic, you'll click on next, and this is where the loan contract gets generated. And so with here, you've got two options after you review the contract. And so I guess you go through, make sure that the asset description is right, the invoice amount is right, and the repayments match what has been quoted. You can download a copy of the contract, and it gets downloaded as a PDF if you wanted to review that or have the client review it before a document, the loan documents get sent out through DocuSign. But if that's right to send over to the client to sign, you would click on send contract, and that's the end of the doc generation process. And as I said before, with the documents, as soon as they're being signed, they do automatically get added into the signed contract field and get accepted as well. And so once they have been signed, and say if there's a certificate of currency or anything that's kind of post documents that's required for settlement, it would be attached onto here. And then with everything as pretty much marked as accepted, you'd submit for a review for the final piece, usually the certificate of currency, and then that goes into a queue for that to be reviewed, and you can request settlement from here. And so by clicking the request settlement, it goes directly into our settlements queue, and that gets reviewed from there, and the deal is done.
Let's take a look and answer some of the questions that have come through, which we haven't already addressed. Okay. So the ETA between uploading any document and it being reviewed will vary. It is very quick, and as part of that, the team that I sort of mentioned before, we've bolstered it by 7 staff, is to review and check off any of the attachments almost in real time. They will come back to you via the portal. So you'll see it's either been approved and you'll get notification, or they'll come back with why it may have been rejected, or if there's any questions and queries, and you can communicate to them directly back through the portal, opposed to historically going through account managers and your BDM. So the process will be a lot quicker. But the team is essentially working on a same-day turnaround time on anything that is loaded up to respond back, so that we can issue documents and ultimately get to settlement as quick as possible. Do we need to digitally verify guarantors? We will do all that in the background. That's part of the KYC process and AML process, which is now being moved to the front of the queue. We used to historically do that at the time the docs were requested. What happens is now in the background, the deal comes out of credit approval, moves into a compliance team who go and check off the AML and KYC, and you'll see that it's completed in the workflow. If it can't be completed in the workflow for whatever reason, if it fails digital ID, we'll come back to you and ask for a certified version of that ID to be supplied as part of that deal, and it'll be added to the settlement conditions, which you'll see in the portal as well. Do you want to take some?
Yeah. Got a question about, once the docs have been signed, will a copy be sent or be able to get downloaded? So actual copy of the signed documents don't get sent, but a confirmation from DocuSign does get sent to say that documents have been signed, and they can be downloaded directly from that email. There is an expiry on that, and it may need to be refreshed. So if you do like to get copies of the signed documents, download them straight away as soon as the email comes through. But otherwise, on the portal in the document section, once it has been signed, you can jump back into the application on the portal and download it from there. And if, say, there's any issues getting it those two ways, you can send us an email and we can send you signed documents.
What happens if the loan docs are sent out, but something changes and there needs to be an alteration made? At the moment, if something changes until stage 2 is released, which is not far away at all, you do need to contact your BDM or AM. We'll make that change in the background, and then you can reissue documentation. With the upcoming release, you'll be able to modify a whole bunch of things to change, various, if the invoice price changes within a tolerance up or down, you'll be able to change it. If the customer wants a new loan term, if you need to adjust your brokerage up and down, you'll be able to change and reissue documentation yourself. So that's not very far away at all.
Yeah, and also in the meantime, if there's any typos to the email address or the mobile number, and if that needs to be updated, potentially you can go into the application and go into the KYC field and correct the email and the mobile number and regenerate the documents from there. And so each time a document is regenerated, the existing documents do get voided, so the client doesn't get multiple copies or reminders to complete or sign documents that have been replaced.
Yeah, and do all documentations need to be, or attachments and documentation need to be uploaded and checked off before issuing docs? The answer is no. So the premise of launching this is so that you, the brokers, can also send out documents as you need. If you need to sign a customer up quickly to ensure that you retain the transaction, you can do that, knowing that we will come back through and check the documentation at request or at settlement or whenever you request it. So the answer is no, you can proceed as quick as possible with issuing documentation to customers.
Cool. And so with the documents, really, the main thing that we need is the invoice, assets be added onto there from the invoice details that you've attached, or the private seller details, and they're in the same tab there, being a non-private seller or a private seller, and documents can be generated from there.
Yeah, and you will get notification once your documents are available to be generated. So you don't have to keep jumping in and out of the portal and checking all the time. So whether it's you as the broker or one of your support staff is there, once the deal goes through to credit approved and we've got everything and it goes through its process, you'll receive notification saying it's credit approved. Then you'll receive notification saying that docs are ready to be generated for this contract, and they'll be able to log into the portal or go through that email to go straight to the deal and push documents out straight away.
Okay, and so the documents also can be generated for all of our equipment loans, business loans, and overdrafts. Equipment loans are probably the longest, and not that it takes all too long, because you need to put in the asset details, but with the business loan or overdraft, really no asset details need to be put in there. And so really it's just checking the email and mobile numbers, and they can be generated and sent out from there. I think that's everything from there. Maybe we can show the new function in the portal where we can clone applications. So for any existing applications, or say if you've got a deal or a client that they want multiple assets on different loan contracts, we do have a new function to be able to generate or clone the application once the first one has been entered. And so as soon as a new deal has been entered, you go into the application, and the deal can be, once it's been created, it can be cloned or copied from there. It doesn't need to be settled or approved or anything like that. So if you jump into the deal, what you would do is go copy this application and then choose what type of new application it is, be it asset finance, business loans, or overdrafts. And so if you click on business loan, for instance, if they wanted a vehicle and then a business loan, you choose which the second application or subsequent application would be. So that's a success. And then you just jump back into the applications. That happens automatically, and the deal sits in there as a draft. And it doesn't need to be updated straight away. You can go away and come back to it, and that's no problem. It will sit there as a draft, but as you enter new applications, it'll just kind of go down the list. But say if we're ready to submit this new one, give it 10 seconds for their business name or any information to populate. And so from here, you would go through the application as normal, but it does save the time on re-entering directors, guarantors, information, addresses, and that type of thing. Really, the main thing that you're adding in is what the new application is, and then any notes to support the application and attach any new additional supporting information from there.
So with respect to settlement and when to request your settlement, our cutoff times don't change with this new process. Effectively, if you load everything up to the portal and you think you're in a position where the deal is good to go, you click submit it, it will go through to the settlements team, provided it is in there before 2 o'clock. That team will work through that, sign off all those documents, provided they can be approved, and we'll look to settle that deal the same day. And if it comes in after 2 o'clock, it becomes a next day settlement. Do you have any other questions? I think we've covered most of the questions that's come through. If there are any more, or if there are more that you come up with when you're actually working your way through the system and hopefully generating documentation with ease to send out to your customers, please contact myself, contact your BDM and AM. You have all their contact details. There's also a general line which is now serviced by the increased staff, so we're available to assist. And like I said, please share the feedback, positive, negative, neutral, on the portal. We're always looking to make amendments to it and make the experience a little bit more pleasant for everyone, including ourselves, and getting deals done for customers. So please, if you see anything that you would like added or amended, share that feedback, and we're only too happy to accommodate it, provided we can, in up and coming future releases.
One last thing that I forgot to mention, that once you've created and sent out the contract, we didn't send out the contract in this case, we just generated it. The generate contract will change, or there will be an additional box that would say signer status, and if you click on that, you'll see that whether or not the status will, like, it starts off as sent, And when the client has viewed it and signed it, it will be signed from there. And if there's multiple signatories, you'll have sent for one, say if they haven't opened it, but the second signatory has completed and signed, their status will be updated as signed. There is another status, and it's auto response, and that generally means that the documents went out and there might be a typo in the email, and there's been an automatic kind of bounce back, or it might be an auto reply as well. So if you do see that, just double check that the email is correct, and update it from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for dialing in, and we look forward to receiving your feedback, and look forward to seeing you using it. Like I said, there's a second release that is being released shortly, which will give you a whole bunch more control and functionality over key functions and deal metrics within the actual transaction itself. So we'll notify you once that's available and live, and run another demonstration and show you how much you can actually update and move around transactions. But until then, thanks for dialing in. Please share the feedback with your AMs and BDMs, and we look forward to seeing the deals come through. Cheers.